Hello, this is another episode of National Divorce Talk Raw. There's a lot of discussion about CALEXIT because of Roe v. Wade. And one of the things that people say is, you can't have a CALEXIT, you can't have a TEXIT because every state is a smattering of red and blue, and it's a big amalgamation and swirled up. And so it's really kind of impossible for states to secede because you'd have pockets of blue and pockets of red. And what would you do with that? And it basically is so complicated, you can never make it happen. Wanted to show that that's a total garbage argument when it comes to California, completely naive and unaware of our political environment and just has no place here. I'll prove that to you. We'll also go into a little discussion about TEXIT for our friends at Texas who may want to watch this and show how some of the criticism is a little bit more fair there, certainly than compared to California, but even then it's surmountable. And this idea that you couldn't figure it out is a garbage concept that critics of CALEXIT and TEXIT say. So let's get right into the data. Well, actually, I got to show you something first, and then we'll get into the data. Hold on. It'll be worth it. This is going to be a data-heavy show, so get ready. We're going to definitively prove our points. So we got to go into a lot of data. We'll try to do it briefly, but we think that we'll be able to prove our point when we're done. So here we go. Now, what you're looking at right now is, and I'm going to have to do a lot of toggling back and forth. So 2020 congressional and presidential election maps. So this map right here that's moving, that is the congressional districts. See how it's kind of odd shapes? And this one's the presidential districts. So let's zoom in. Now, what you're going to notice is that the presidential districts that I'm moving right now are counties. So they kind of count the vote by counties. If it's not taken at the county level, it's certainly collected at the county level. So a lot of elections go by counties. But then there are congressional elections, and congressional elections have their own unique districts. As you can see here, not exactly the same thing. So this is the congressional one, and you can see it's different boundaries than the counties. So it's about 52 counties or 58, and then here's these congressional districts. So point is, actually, give me 1 second. I'll throw it on power. Okay. The point is that when you're going to have a vote on if California secedes or not, and how it would be split up, you're either going to have to choose congressional districts or county districts. And the reason is that there really isn't any other form of vote, map-wise. So you're either looking at, let's say California has a referendum to secede, and 52% say they want to go, which is the legally international precedent for secession based upon Brexit. And so you're either going to go, well, we're going to divide California based up on by counties, or divide California based by congressional districts. It would be better to have the vote by congressional districts for this reason. Let me go in depth. So, yeah, here we go. Congressional districts, because each region would have a representative in Congress. So if you wanted to have California split up or broken up after it was seceding and you were going, who's going to go which way? One of the good things is that if you have congressional district, each district has a representative in Congress. California would have to get Congress's approval likely to secede. Now, Erwin Chemerinsky and other California-based constitutional scholars said that a simple vote of Congress would be all it takes for California to secede. So let's say there's a simple vote in Congress for California to secede. Great. Now we're going to have to talk about, do these people want to go with them, or do these people not want to go? We were talking with Jefferson people, and they're like, can we have a vote to leave if you don't? Well, here's how you would do that. You would either have to pick by congressional district or by county. Congressional districts have a representative in Congress. So if we're talking about how you have to do a lot of high-level negotiation at the federal level on the future of California's boundaries, it'd be good to have a representative in Congress. However, counties would be better for secession for this reason. Counties do count in the vote. They count for president. So they have a lot of impact because of that. Also, counties are mini governments. They can more easily administer the land after separation. So if you say these red counties in the north get a leave, it's easy for these blue counties just south of them to go, okay, because they already have recognized boundaries and each county is already a recognized government that has to manage everything. Congressional districts aren't governments. They're just voting blocks for voting. So if you go, okay, well, this congressional district in the far north, right here, this big one in the top right, or maybe this congressional district in the far left, this giant one, they want to leave. Well, now you have to recreate boundaries and have governments fit them. So if you have counties leave, you don't have to do that. The other counties keep their boundaries. They know where they're a government. These are not congressional, these are not government districts. So you'd have to create, you basically would have to chop up the counties in order to make this happen. So you'd have to be going to like 5, 6 counties and going, we need to change your boundaries, change your maps, and rework your whole government. A lot of work. If you kept it with counties, counties just leave. The other counties that didn't leave stay. They're already cohesive government factions. If you go with congressional, you don't get that option. So I'm not saying which one's which. I'm just saying that's why something. Now, counties would hate to have the breakup by congressional district. And that's because it would rip those counties apart. And you'd have to form new administrations in order to make that work. So it would also cause more population movement as people in urban areas, specifically Sacramento, Fresno, and Corona, would be split by congressional district. So let me show you that. So here's the congressional district, and I already made this outline that matches that. Hold on, let me bring it to front. So this is what we're going to use as our cue. As you can see, here you go. This equals the congressional districts, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to place this over here. This is our population map. Let me make sure that matches in. Okay. So this is our population map of California. So I drew the congressional districts. They are represented by that black line, as you can see now. And if we zoom in on the population map, what you can see here is I pull the congressional districts back. There's this red dot that you're looking at right here is Sacramento. Part of that's going to be cut by the congressional district. If you come down here, that red dot that you're looking at the center of the screen is Fresno. Part of the congressional district will cut Fresno. If you come down here, part of the congressional district is going to cut Corona right there in downtown LA. So you're going to have Corona in the LA region cut. You're going to have Fresno in the central cut, and you're going to have the Sacramento urban region cut if you go with congressional districts. So congressional districts will rip up at least 3 urban areas, and they will rip up the counties. So that would be a reason why not to go with congressional districts. I'm not saying which way it's going to go, but maybe the voters of California could go to their Congress members and say, look, we know you're voted by congressional district, but we'd like the vote and the separation, the breakup after the vote to secede to be by counties. They could do that. It'd be up to the Congress member or America at that time to go with that. So let's get into, let's say they keep counties. Let's say California has a vote to secede, and we're going to go with counties. Okay. Well, here is the last presidential election. It's this map right here. And so we would lose this red chunk of counties in the southern Central Valley. And then we would lose this chunk of counties here in, so that chunk of counties is that's red, is the Sierra Nevada Mountains. This chunk of counties in the north is the Jefferson movement. So that's Jefferson. That's the Sierra Nevada Mountains. And that's the southern Central Valley. So 3 pockets of red if you separate by county. Okay, now let's take a look. Yeah, sorry. So if you go by county, then, you know, so I don't know if this will work, but no. Trying to draw. Okay. Home, redo. Oops. What just happened? Sorry. Computers. Give me a second. Okay. Let's try again. Okay, so that's roughly the boundaries of the blue. So these, whoops, I'm not doing that again. So anyways, this area here, which you can see, is this area here. Okay, that's that. This area here is this area here. Okay. And if we scroll up, roughly something roughly like this is this area here. Okay. As you can see, we're not losing population. So here's this red dot. Those are outside of this red area here. So we don't lose population. As you can see, we got Fresno, we got, and also this whole region is prime farm ag land. So we would keep half of the prime farm ag land represented by these blue areas here. This area here.
Now, can I just stop you for a second and ask a question? And I feel like some people may be wondering, is there potential that some of these red counties may also say, yeah, let's leave the Union of the United States?
That's certainly possible. Absolutely. They may say, let me get those lines off. They may say that. Absolutely. If I could, okay, here we go.
And so this is all just based on if red says no, but blue says yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to do worst case scenario. So California gets the vote to secede, and then we get into, and as we've talked about, counties aren't recognized by the federal government. States are. So maybe California secedes and leaves in whole. Maybe. Or maybe California gets permission by Congress to secede, and then it comes down to, okay, but what about the red state pockets that don't want to go with you? And this is a worst case scenario. But some of the red may choose to stay. Like this area here, these Central Valley counties here, Kings, Tulare, and Kern, may say we don't want to be isolated, and cut off from America, and so we want to choose to join you guys. It's a worst case scenario. Okay, now we're going to move on to that. So one thing that we could do, if you wanted to go with counties, here's these two blue counties. As you can see, they're blue. So we got to take care of those people. There's the blue in Butte. That's Butte County. And then there's blue in, I believe
Placer.
that's Placer County.
That's my home right there. Home is where the heart is.
Yeah, so we got, and the CEO is from here, just like I'm from down here in Fresno. Whoops. CEO is from here. I'm from here in Fresno. CEO's here. So we're not actually like coastal liberals, although people like to think that.
And just because I'm from that one tiny little blue pocket of gold country surrounded by all the red, it doesn't mean that I'm, against folks who are on the other side of the fence on political positions. Most of my, adoptive family and whatnot, they don't actually live in Placer County anymore. They're around the area, and I mean, it's how I'm able to work with Texit and say, yes, Texas, I agree with your right to leave and pursue self-determination. And I can say it honestly, in good faith and good conscience, and have zero ill will towards them. I'm not like, some of America is saying, yeah, get gone, get lost, good riddance.
Right.
I'm like, I don't actually dislike Texas. I've got family who, on my mother's side, from Texas. So, I guess vicariously I would have to be hating on myself as well. But, yeah, no, it's interesting because, Gold Country is such a big part of California history. And some of it's red, some of it's blue.
Yeah.
And back home, I think people are a little more reasonable in certain ways when it comes to politics. They may vote red or vote blue, but ultimately they're doing it because they want what's best for them. Whereas, and I've been living in the Bay Area for like 15, 16 years now. And I've met a lot of people, everyone's different, and the Bay is just as great a place of California as the rest. But there are a lot of people who I would say are on the extreme of one end or the other. And that's because a lot of the political leaning is coming from like the sentiment of not wanting the other. So like in this last presidential election, a good example was that people voting for Biden weren't actually voting for Biden by and large. They were just voting against Donald Trump. What we wanted was Bernie Sanders, Senator Bernard Sanders, who has been a champion of the people for many, many a decade.
He kind of sold out twice in a row, just saying.
Oh, no, I know. And he's made it clear that if Biden's on the ticket, he is most definitely not going to enter. And I think that is a crying shame because it would be his kind of last chance, really. And also, it's kind of America's last chance, really. He's the only person, the only one who could actually beat Donald Trump well enough. You don't get a recount. It's a landslide. This is
Yeah,
a non-contestable victory we're looking at. But
I,
no.
I think that ship sailed, bro.
Oh, I
Brendan
know,
did
I
it
know.
twice. He backed
And
out, tricked people. Oh, a third time? Oh,
and
yeah.
that's why I know with like 99% certainty, 99.9, Trump is coming back to the White House, and this is going to be way worse because last time he didn't know enough.
Eh,
Now he knows enough to know what to do to get that stuff done that he's been championing for a
yeah,
while now.
yeah. Well, let
When
me.
people prove their worth to you, listen and heed them.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So this we have these counties. If we're going to go by California being divided by the presidential election, and we're looking at the counties because it was easier to have the state break up by counties since they're already recognized mini governments. The problem is that you have these two blue areas. This is a little bit difficult. These two blue areas locked by the. There you go. See blue behind red. Got it. So one way to solve that, we have to do a couple things. The other thing is that you have this red area um, that's cut off. It's surrounded by blue. So one option may be in a theoretical negotiation. Theoretical negotiation. California needs this section right here. That's the 5 freeway, that line that's bordered by this blue box here. Along that segment of the 5 freeway in this red box is massive telecommunications, power, and other communications equipment. It's a huge piece of infrastructure. If they would be willing in this red county to give us just this 5 freeway section, by the way, nobody lives there. I've driven it many times. The people live over here. No one lives here. So we're not really going to impact humans. It's the infrastructure we want. They're willing to give us that piece of 5 infrastructure so that we could reconnect this Northern California past that, basically Fresno County down to LA. Then I say we give them this piece of infrastructure, which I believe is the 395 and 190. Swap segments of 395 and 190 for the 5 freeway. And if they were willing to do that, these are all theoretical, but they could get the 395 and the 190 freeway. And that would allow this red pocket here to be directly connected to America. So they give us this, and then we give them access so they have direct access to the rest of America. By the way, Vegas is right here.
So
So
they
we give
would
them
get
these
to
roads.
maintain their contiguous border
Yep.
that might matter for folks. And again, we don't know if folks in that area would vote to leave or stay. Um, all hypothetical, as you say.
All
Uh,
hypothetical.
but were they to, in this pocket, say, no, we're still America, we want to still be America, this is a nice potential deal. It's very amicable. I think that does sound very sane and reasonable. Hey, you know what's going to matter to us most is getting that piece of very important infrastructure cut off. You know what's going to matter to you most is being surrounded by blue and, not America, being cut off. Having to constantly ask California for permission to go through so you
Yeah.
can get back to America where you're leaving from. It would be quite insane. And I agree that no one should really have to go through that. That is not reasonable.
They
So
would be
that's why I
completely cut
see,
off.
yeah, that's why I see that as a reasonable potential deal that I think, should it get this far and should this scenario be the reality, um, I think it would behoove all of California and our appointed representatives uh, to work out this deal. I think just that swap right there is really right. No strings, no add-ons, no hitchhikers, right? Just straight up, hey, we get this and you get that. Yeah, we good? Okay. It's everyone gets what they want, right?
It's a straight up swap for roughly the same length. We get this key piece of 5 freeway infrastructure where no one lives, and they get this key piece of infrastructure so they can literally drive out and they have their own access points. So if they don't want to have to drive through California at all, they could have their own access and stay part of America. And Vegas is right here. So they're connected to a major urban area. Straight up swap. And humans don't live here, and humans don't live here. So we're not really talking about people being impacted. Let me show you. So we're really talking about, see if I can do this. That's what we want. And they would get something like this. So if I zoom in, I know it's not great quality, but see how it's all green? That means no humans. All green, no humans. This is humans, yellow, red. No
Oh,
humans.
it doesn't mean lush and forested?
No, in both those situations, it's going to look like a desert. So,
I know.
no,
Having
yeah,
just been stranded in Barstow, I
yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, which would be roughly here. So, you know how populated Barstow is on the outskirts of Barstow. It's going to be that populated on these two segments. That's what I wanted to prove. So, people
It's
like,
going to be even less populated
yeah,
on both of those segments. And actually,
yeah,
that strip of five is how we came back up north. Um,
mm,
yeah.
yeah,
So I can also attest. I think I saw a couple of big mines, maybe a
yeah,
quarry or something.
yeah.
Lots of gas field and power generation out the wazoo, which that's nice. I'm not sure if it falls on that strip or not. But yeah, there was not much in the way. I remember seeing a little shack, and I was like, "Wow, does someone actually live out here?" And then I realized, no, it's like a gatehouse kind of a thing for this long, long road that goes out somewhere into the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
and it's maybe some sort of military something or other. No one lives out
Well,
there.
yeah. So he's saying there's almost no one out there. So nobody's really going to get hurt. Um, and as you can see, whoops, sorry. Yeah. So, well, they get this and we get this. And then they can keep most of their red area and they give us a little piece of infrastructure and we give them a bit of infrastructure. And what I also liked was that even though we're cutting right through this blue square here, all of this blue area is still connected. So uh, we're cutting this blue square here in half, but these people are connected to blue and it's still connected to blue. And this goes here. So, and the people north of this right here are still connected to blue. So red people get to have their own access and blue people aren't cut off. And so what that leaves is just these two blue pockets that would have to be compensated. And whenever you have to have people move, it causes human misery. So the idea is we want to cut down on the number of humans you have to move. And we could do that. If you go with counties, no swap, Northeast neighbors, this leaves only the counties of Butte and Nevada that would have to be relocated. So all the people in those areas who were liberal, and it's actually going to be smaller than this. This is the total population of those counties. Obviously, not everybody's liberal, just the majority of the people. So
So
we're
wait,
looking.
was that Nevada County, not Placer County?
My understanding was, I could be wrong. If it's not Nevada, it's
Because
county.
yeah, it looked like the shape of Placer, but it is, if you've ever been back there, back in my home area, it is hard to tell when you leave one and enter the other. If it weren't for the signs, you'd never really know.
Sure.
You just drive through the mountains on these beautiful roads through lots of trees, and there are little towns tucked away here and there, you know.
So maybe it's Placer, maybe it's Nevada. Either way, it's one of them. And they're not going to have more than 100,000 people. And they're really not going to have 100,000 people because a good section of the population is conservative and will want to stay. So we're really only looking at a fraction of either Placer or a fraction of Nevada and a fraction of Butte County. So no more than 2 counties. It's either Butte and Nevada or Placer. And we're looking at less than 300,000 people who are blue would have to be removed if we go with the county scenario that you're seeing here. So if we do this, the idea is that, oh, you're going to have this massive partition, California splitting off from America, all, you know, and critics would say it'd be like India and Pakistan and people have to do these great migrations. No. We connect this pocket here to America. This whole red pocket is all contiguous. And it already connects to 2 different states. So here's Nevada and here's Oregon. And this is Idaho. So this section and this section is all one section and already butted up against states that they could join. So nobody has to leave. Nobody has to be removed. They can still stay part of America and be contiguously connected. These people could also get contiguous connection, which means the only humans that would have to move would be these 2 blue counties here. And that population would be less than 300,000 people that would have to be moved out of a population of 40 million. That's pretty doable. 300,000 out of 40 million is pretty doable. And that's provided we swap this infrastructure. Now, the other option is they say, we don't want to deal with you at all. Okay. You know, we don't want to trade this section of the 5 freeway. And then we go, okay. Then you are now landlocked, right? If you don't want to trade with us, you are now landlocked, which means you are at our mercy in order to connect to Americans. So just saying, a reason why they'd probably go for it. But let's say they didn't. Or worst case scenario. If we don't get this section of the 5, we would have to build this. So this is the 5 freeway here. Right there, and then this is the 101 freeway. So that blue line that's wiggling, that's the 101 freeway, and the blue box covers the 5 freeway. So they either give us the 5 freeway and we give them this section in return, or we have to upgrade the 101 freeway in order to provide the amount of traffic we had on the 5. Now, we could do that. If you look at the 101 freeway, it's largely on flat land and it hasn't been developed as possible. So it doesn't butt up against the mountains. That's why we didn't pick the coastal one. This is the 101. And most of it's in the interior of California. As you can see, there is flat land and it could easily be expanded. We just typically don't do it for environmental concerns. But you could do it. If we don't get this, we're not stuck. We just upgrade this, but it would cost money. Keeping this in place and not paying for this infrastructure would be a lot cheaper, just to give them these 2 routes, because most Californians don't need these routes. Californians typically use these routes here for interaction with America. This is the 15 and 40, and they use this 10 freeway here. So California uses these routes here to connect with America. We don't use this route. So we use these, don't use this, so we're really losing nothing. And in return, we don't have to spend the money to upgrade the 101 in order to deal with the loss of this infrastructure, which means that if everybody's willing to be reasonable, the only real cost we're going to have is moving these people, less than 300,000 people. And you can tell because those are light blue, they're not dark blue, that there's only slightly more liberals than conservatives. So we're probably looking at only half of the population of those 2 counties. If collectively they're 300,000, we're probably looking at actually no more than 150,000 people would have to be relocated. 150,000 out of 40 million. Very doable.
Yeah, and so I would just throw out there that I agree with your assessment on this. However, being from there, I would really, really hate to see that happen. um, part of me is optimistic that people, not just back home in that region of the red, but like, further north, like the state of Jefferson folks. I think I uh had a good slight interaction with someone earlier on Twitter, who I think is from that area, who was asking that age-old question: would you let us go? What if we don't want to go when you CALEXIT? And I tried to explain that and Twitter only allows so much room, but tried to explain that, well, we'd really, California, for the international law, California should do it as a whole. But say we do CalExit, we'd have to form a new government for California. What would we call ourselves? Possibly the Republic of California? I don't know. It would most likely be up to voters, right? Like every single question uh, would would be up to the people, and ultimately we would probably have officials or people who we appoint to represent, much like counties, right? Kind of like how the United States has certain representation, right? See what I'm getting at here? You hold the convention of the counties and you form a new constitution, and those state of Jefferson counties, if they see the utter crap storm that is America and they're like, yes, this looks swell to me, I want to dive right in, um, they could push for having the option to leave at, whatever time peacefully by a, consent vote of the people of the area, right? Um, you let there be something like that, and it one makes sure that civil war is much less likely, like ever, unlike what America did. I mean, sure, they don't say you can't, but they didn't really define it at all, right? So we define it, we let it be known. Hey, you want to be a Californian, you feel Californian, great. If at any point in time you feel that California is not you or you're not California, uh, welcome to, by a democratic, peaceful process, go ahead and make that decision. Um, and it falls right in line with the right to self-determination, I think. So, ultimately, that would be the most plausible and easiest and safest and most like based in legal structure path towards the state of Jefferson, right? Because if they decide, hey, now that CalExit has happened and we've got this in the Constitution that we can leave, and this utter pile of what was once called America is still here somehow miraculously, if it is, uh, then they could decide to, leave California and then petition the United States to take them over as a territory and allow them in as a state and, all of that. They can go through that process.
Yeah.
There are no guarantees on the way. No one can guarantee any of that, right? Like, I'm the head of CalExit. I can't guarantee the people of Jefferson that they'll be able to do this.
Yeah.
The head of Jefferson can't guarantee the people of Jefferson that they'll be able to do this. Uh, all
Yep.
that you can do is find the correct legal path to walk and walk it to the T if that's what you want. And, in the pursuit of self determination and hopefully not losing my beloved home area, I would totally, totally chip in with folks and put all of my brain power to good use for everyone of the area all up there. Like all of that red, the little bit of blue in there, all the way up through the state of Jefferson. I will gladly help figure that out if that's what you want, just in the interest of trying to figure a way to not lose the area that I call home. Because none of us really want that. The people of Jefferson don't want that just as much as no one else does.
So
And yeah, well, I was just going to say, and this sounds like, we're already seeing potential for a slight peaceful divorce going on with the CALEXIT. And it just, to me, showcases how much more reasonable Californians are than the rest of America. Rest of America, Civil War! Take them out back and shoot them, try them for treason and hang them in the square, tar them and feather them, throw them into the ocean.
Okay.
Yeah,
let me
I'm
to the
just
map,
I'm
please.
just saying, and then here in California, we're like, yes, we're talking about secession, this crazy concept. However, we're talking about legal stuff and analytics. We're like, being the reasonable people here. So I just point that out in the hopes that folks will maybe, in these red areas, maybe remember how Californian they are too.
Thought. Who knows? Although bro, this idea that they're going to back out on all that, maybe, but I think it's more likely that they won't. And we're going to look at, do they want to leave us after we leave, or do we say you don't have the right to leave? So I just looking at the option of if we secede, where does that go? And this is maybe one way that we could finish the final negotiation. But maybe they choose to stay. Maybe. Could be. To point out, though, if you go with counties, this is how we can get around spending money on infrastructure, as we explained, and making sure the impact to human life is very little if we go with counties. And it's easy for these red states to be contiguous and connected to America, so they could feel whole. One of the issues that we have to look at is water. Now, we are going to lose almost all these dams. So if we go by counties, and even if we go by congressional districts, which I'll show you in a second, we're going to lose almost all these dams here. So there you go, Shasta, all down to Pine Flat, and a variety of these dams. Now, here's the thing. We don't lose all of them. So I'll show you that. So if we go by, here's the far north, and here's the Sierra Nevada mountains. And then we come over here. And this is roughly what we would lose if we went with counties. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people talk about water and water problems in California. Well, we don't actually have a water problem. I know, someone's told you differently, but I want to show you this. This is a hydrology map of California. It shows where there's tons of water. So light blue is water, dark blue is a lot of water, purple is so much water you can barely handle it. Green is some water, yellow's less water, brown, red, drought. So yellow, brown, red, bad. Green, eh. Blue, dark gray, purple, awesome. And what I want to point out to you is this. Where this box is, this is incredibly rich water. there's as much water here as there is here. There's as much water here as there is here. There's as much water here as there is here. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then we move this over here. And it kind of makes sense that all these dams were here. Why? Because there's a lot of water there. I mean, that you can kind of see. Why did they build those dams there? Well, because there's so much rainfall. So they could collect water. But here's the thing.
Yeah, hydroelectric power usually needs that hydro.
Yeah. We still have this gigantic water region right here. And this is, if California left, and if we couldn't keep California whole, and if they argued that there had to be some way for the red to leave, then we'd have to look at this. And what I'm saying is, if you go by counties, we keep this gigantic hydrology region here while we lose this one. So yes, we would lose some dams here, which we'd have to, which comes from this region, and they'd have to be replaced. But I want to point out that we can do that. Now, this is an earthquake map. And you might be asking, why didn't they build dams here? And why did they build them here? Well, obviously, we have a lot of dams here because there's no earthquakes. And they did not build dams here because this is an earthquake zone. However, they built these dams in the 60s.
I was wondering if you were going to get to that point.
Yeah.
With modern technology.
Yes. So they were built during the 60s. The technology to deal with earthquakes has advanced in 60 years. We don't have the same limits on buildings we did in the past. For example, California built a, quote, new earthquake-proof Calaveras Dam in 2015. So just a few years ago, we built a new dam in that earthquake zone. Why? Because we have the technology to build dams like we couldn't in the 1960s. It cost $720 million, and it saved 31 billion gallons and 220 feet. So when we look at this, let's go back to that hydrology map.
And can you just say those numbers just a little more slowly? Because that was fast, and you know me, I'm good at catching that stuff. But even for me, it took me a second of processing it for that to really hit.
Let me zoom in on that. A new earthquake-proof Calaveras Dam was built in 2015. Earthquake-proof dam. I didn't make that title. That's the title of the article. Earthquake-proof dam built in 2015. It's one of the first dams built since the 1960s. So almost all those dams you saw, half of which we lose, were built in the 60s. This is one of the first dams built since then in basically 60 years. And guess what? It's earthquake proof. And guess where they're building it? In earthquake zone. Why? Because we can do that now. It will be 220 feet tall. That's a 220-foot tall dam in earthquake country. It will provide 31 billion gallons or 100,000 acre feet. They typically measure in acre feet, but for us civilians, it's 31 billion gallons. 220 feet tall for a cost of $720 million, about $750 million. And we built it in 2015 in Calaveras. And it saved 31 billion, and it was for basically feeding water to the Bay Area. So let me show you here. Yeah, okay. So see this right here, that purple, that pink dot in the center? That's damn near where Calaveras is. Here's the pink dot. Okay, so it's just south of the Bay Area, south of San Jose, pink dot right here, Calaveras. I'm going to show you the equivalent area on the earthquake map. There it is. Calaveras is right about here in this area, and it's in the earthquake zone. So they are building dams in the earthquake zone. They're building them here now in the earthquake zone. So why can't we build more dams here in the earthquake zone? If we're building dams in earthquake zones, seems like we can build dams in earthquake zones, which means that we could replace the dams. So we lose this area. We lose this area, but we gain an area that's just as big. And in fact, has more water. See that dark purple? That's ridiculous amounts of water. So we could easily replace the dams. Yes, that would cost money. But if it went this way,
yeah, I think the world's third to fifth largest economy could probably handle doing that if we needed to.
Right? Right? So this is all worst case scenario. I would like for us to just leave as California and we just go, well, the counties aren't recognized. That's the way that it is. And we deal with it. But maybe it doesn't go that way. Maybe Congress. So if we can do a freeway swap, great. If we can't, we have to upgrade the 101 and we will have to build new dams here. That's the infrastructure cost. Personal cost is that we only have to move about 150,000 people here. So the impact to the economy is going to be, tolerable. Now, let me show you if they say, I don't like counties, we're going to go with congressional districts. We also run the numbers again. And so basically, let's get rid of that. One second. Okay, here's congressional districts. So if we do congressional districts, I want to show you again, we already covered this, we basically don't lose any population. And it goes something like that. It's not perfect, but basically we keep I'm not doing this right. It's something like that. So we'd keep most of Sac, Fresno. We would lose Bakersfield. That red dot right there is Bakersfield. So if you're really upset, the other two red dots north of it are Visalia and Hanford. So tiny cities. Bakersfield isn't small, but it's, Bakersfield. Hanford and Visalia. Otherwise, we keep all the urban areas, Sacramento, all the Central Valley territory right here, farmland from Stockton down to parts of Madera. So we have plenty of farmland, even under the congressional district scenario. Here, this northern part of the Central Valley, that right here, this part of the Central Valley is more than enough prime ag land to feed all of our population. And we would still keep that under the county or congressional district scenario. And we don't really lose any population hubs at all. Oh, I'm sorry. We'd also lose Bakersfield, and I believe that's Lancaster. So we would lose Bakersfield and Lancaster population areas, but guys, they don't count for much. So the other and if you did that, so if you go by congressional districts, there are, where my congressional district map go? There. Okay. Let me zoom in. Come on. All right. So let's say we're going with congressional districts. You know let me? Okay. So with congressional districts, This is all one solid piece. See from the north down south. So all of that could leave together. Don't have to move those people. They're butted up against other states, so they could just leave. If that's the way that it went, if we can't keep it all. So if they keep congressional districts, we have the same issue that we had with counties, where most of these counties can just leave and join another state. Most of the congressional district that didn't vote liberal can leave and join another state. Where it gets interesting is here. So you start getting into, there's this little pocket here, a little pocket there. So you can see the town of Beaumont is in between where those two congressional districts touch. So there's a congressional district here along the coast. That's basically Huntington Beach in red. That red dot that you see there is Corona. And the pink is the rest of the congressional district. And then there's the other congressional district. So the large congressional district is cut off from this other congressional district and from this coastal one. So it's in the city of Beaumont, separates these two. We could offer them that we can build a flyover bridge in Beaumont, which is a low population city. And basically we would say, hey, look, we will connect these two segments of your congressional districts here in Beaumont. That leaves only this coastal district that we weren't able to connect. So they would be contiguous. The large body we could connect over Beaumont with an overpass, allowing us to travel underneath, and they could travel over, and that would be one whole body that could leave, stay connected to America. The only problem would be the coastal district. We can't connect the coastal district to the second largest congressional district because you'd be cutting off traffic from LA to San Diego. That's just not economically viable. It's not going to work. So that coastal district can't go with them. It would have to stay. However, coastal district 48 is what we're talking about. And it's basically in Orange County. It is your Seal Beach to Huntington Beach. Seal Beach to Huntington Beach. Seal Beach to Huntington Beach is that coastal district. We're looking at a total population of 904,000 people who would have to be moved. Now, here's the thing. Not all those people were conservative who voted in that area, even though it went conservative, so the liberals could stay. The conservatives would most likely want to move. So we're not even looking at about 800,000 people. We're probably looking at something less, like maybe 600,000. But that would be it. If we gave them and we went with congressional districts, if that's the way that it went, we could negotiate with them to give a flyover bridge to connect over Beaumont, and they wouldn't be able to have the coastal one. We would have to move those people. But that limits it to about 600,000 people. Now, if we look over here with water, I already drew this up. That's not accurate. One second. Give me a second here. It's something like that. So if you go with congressional districts, we actually do a little bit better on water. We keep the Trinity Dam up in the north. We keep some of the Central Valley dams. But we do lose this whole chunk here. So this chunk, whether we go with counties or congressional districts, we're still going to lose this. It's still the same scenario. We would still keep all of this. Even if we went with congressional districts, we still keep all of this. So with counties or congressional districts, we still keep all of this. We lose all of this, and we can still replace that. So the big takeaway is we're either going to go with either we keep California whole, or we have to negotiate, and in which case there's only two options. You're going by county boundaries or congressional. boundaries. If we go with county boundaries, we can swap freeways, and then we would help about 150,000 people move from Butte and either Nevada or Placer County. If we go with congressional districts, we would build a flyover bridge over Beaumont to connect them, and that would be about it. And we'd also have to move about 600,000 people out of Seal Beach to Huntington Beach. Additionally, we're going to under either scenario, we'll have to build new dam infrastructure. So either scenario, if they go with congressional or county, we're going to have to build new dam infrastructure. If we go with county, 150,000 liberals have to move. If we go with congressional, about 600,000 conservatives have to leave. If we can swap the 5 freeway for access, then that's also good, because we would lose the 5 freeway under the county boundary idea also. So this segment, we lose either county or congressional. But if we could trade this, then we cut down on the amount of infrastructure we have. That's basically the details of how a vote, if we didn't get all of California, would go, and what the remaining infrastructure cost would be. Thoughts, feelings?
Yeah, so those are some interesting proposals. I really hope that should it get to the point where CALEXIT is actually happening and we're figuring out, do we structure this way, that way? Do we do it this way, that way? Do we leave this way or that way? Oh, Yeshwin! Hey, long time no see. Yeah, so if it does get to that point, I hope whoever it is whose shoulders it's falling upon to figure this all out, make these decisions. One, I would hope someone would nominate you. I mean, you're the guy who wrote the book, literally wrote the book on it. But I really hope that they would consider these sorts of ideas.
That's why we made the video. That's why we do National Divorce Talk Raw. That's why you always do high-level posts on the Facebook and Twitter page, because it's basically us, right? I mean, the mainstream media arguments go with, well, I guess it's civil war. That's about the depth that they will cover this, whereas we're going into actual policy based upon a hard, factual-based understanding of infrastructure and government. So, I mean, they're not even seriously looking at it, and we are, which makes me think that when it does go down, they're going to be looking at all these videos. And this is going to be our training and reasoning. I was thinking about that today. So I was going for a walk. Somebody goes, why are you CALEXIting? And how would you CALEXIT? Here you go. Here's all the videos. And they're well done. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, and I'm just seeing here, I'll keep my mic unmuted while I look through some of the comments coming in from Facebook. I just noticed there's James Young, Bear Cavalry, El Scorpio Perfecto, Orale, and Yeshua, who we, at least I haven't
TJ.
Seen
That's
on.
TJ. He's from the Central Valley.
Wait, that's the TJ who
TJ
you introduced to the
to
group?
Congress and then left when Nick left, and
Oh my goodness, TJ, brother, please come in, join us. Oh my goodness, it's been so long.
So let me show you some Texas stuff while we wait for TJ.
Yeah, did you send out the links? I can't exactly leave the stream here. If I do a different window on my phone.
I just sent it to him and I posted it in the private chat. I didn't send it out to everybody.
Okay.
But you know, I was like, hey, everybody in the chat, I posted the link up. So Y'all can join. You're welcome to join in. We just covered how a vote may go theoretically for CalExit. Now I want to cover a vote may go for Texit and associated discussion. Jason, may I have your permission to show you some Texit stuff?
Oh, please do. Please do.
Okay.
Also,
Sure.
bonus points if any of it is that delicious Texas barbecue.
Uh, well, it's. I mean, it's sweet as Texas barbecue if you like data and maps like I do.
Mmm, nerdgasm.
So this is. Here you go. Oh, don't do that. Seriously. Okay, here we go. This is Texas. So all of Texas is red except for the border with Mexico and 3 urban areas. So you see those 3 blue dots surrounded by a sea of red? That represents Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. So those 3 dots surrounded by a sea of red are only the major urban centers. So once you leave San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, or Austin, it immediately goes deep hardcore red. The only exception is right along the border with Mexico. So it's a different kind of scenario with California where we have our urban areas are liberal, but so are the counties surrounding the urban areas. Whereas in Texas, the urban area is liberal and then immediately goes hardcore red. Whereas in California, I mean, maybe 20 years ago it was that way, but I've been arguing with Republicans like the last 20 years hasn't gone their way. Like the Central Valley has gone blue, Sacramento's gone blue, San Diego, Orange County, the far north, the Inland Empire. So in California, we have blue urban areas with blue surrounding counties, where in Texas they have blue urban area and no surrounding area. And then you go here to the border. So, but here's the question. Most California transplants head for the Texas Triangle, which is the region that makes up the state's largest metropolitan areas: Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, and Austin. That's from this article. Californians moving to Texas. Where do they go? Well, it looks like the Californians that moved to Texas all moved to those 3 dots. So those 3 dots are full of Californians. And Californians do not move to the red counties. They move to only those 3 dots. Why? Because Texas is cheaper overall and because that's where the jobs are. Californians in the oil industry are not leaving and moving to Texas. It's Californians with regular white collar and blue collar jobs. They can only find commensurate pay in the urban areas, right? We're not losing our farmers, our oil rig drillers, our forestry people. That's not who's going. It's regular workers. Regular workers are going to go to a place where they can get a job, those 3 metro areas. So Houston, Austin, San Antonio, full of Californians. Well,
And I'd like to say in defense of Texas and those Texans who have been saying stuff about, there's a lot of influence coming into Texas from California and it's changing like the very fabric of Texas life. Like pretty soon, and like, this is only half tongue in cheek here, but pretty soon we might see like another version of Texas barbecue. Lord forbid.
okay. I don't want to terrify the Texans. You're going to get a tofu mixed vegan soy barbecue sauce.
Free range, gluten free soy.
Yeah, it's from the Californians. So I just want to say they're going, oh, well, Texas turned blue. And if Texas seceded, what are you going to do about all those liberal Texans? Well, first, the liberal Texans are located in 3 dots. They are highly isolated and localized. And a gigantic amount of those blue dots are Californians, not even Texans, who moved there recently. How do we know that? Well, what's this? This is from 538, 2018. What really happened? There it is. Fort Worth, Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio. Those three blue dots. And from 2018 and 2014, when Californians were leaving, guess who had the most growth? Those three urban regions: the Fort Worth, Dallas area, the San Antonio, Austin area, and the Houston area. So the three urban regions that they're saying, what about all those liberals? Well, they grew massively in the last couple of years, right around the same time Californians were leaving. Coincidence? Massive growth in those three urban areas, massive Californians moving at the same time. Well, we're not done. So a good amount of Texas is actually immigrants. 17% of Texas is immigrants. So, you know, that's more than 1/3 of all immigrants are naturalized U.S. citizens. Immigrants in Texas are concentrated either end of the education spectrum. So here's a lot of immigrants. And where do those immigrants go? 59% are in Houston. Similarly, Harris County, where Houston is, has the largest population of undocumented immigrants. So what we can see is when we look at immigration in Texas, this is where immigrants in Texas are moving to, 2016. Well, guess what? They're not moving to the red parts. They're moving to the urban areas. Why? Because that's where the jobs are. So here's those blue dots. The blue dots that everybody's worried about, those liberals. I'm not talking about the blue areas next to the Mexican border. I'm talking about the blue dots, full of Californians, which are responsible for most of the growth, and full of immigrants, who are 17% of the population. So when we talk about, hey, what about all those liberals, the real Texans? A lot of those people are transplants. They haven't been in Texas for very long. They haven't lived there. They moved there for the jobs. So when we're talking about the situation, is it that radically unfair that maybe they'd be open to moving again since they recently moved to the area in the first place, and that's the only reason it's blue? Because the story is Texas just gradually became blue. What they're not saying is Texas is not blue. Three urban areas are blue, and they're only blue because a bunch of immigrants and Californians moved in the last couple of years. So I just know if it was me and a bunch of Texans moved into California in the last 5 years, and then we said, well, California wants to secede, and they go, well, what about Fresno County that's recently returned red again? And if I found out that Fresno County only returned red because a bunch of Texans moved in, no, I don't think it's fair that Fresno doesn't get to go with the rest of California because a bunch of non-Californians moved into the area recently and changed the vote. I also bet a bunch of Texans don't think it's fair either in Texas. Thoughts, feelings? TJ!
What's up, gentlemen? How you doing?
How's it going?
TJ, long time.
Hanging around at the house, was inside eating. The wife made a rigatoni casserole.
Ooh.
So, yay, the girls. One girl is staying the night at a friend's house. The other girl is at grandma's house, and the boys are busy. Yay, it's me time. So, how y'all doing?
Awesome. Awesome. We were talking about how a potential vote for CALEXIT may go and how a potential vote for TEXIT may go. Let me show you the Texas maps because we just covered those. And so this is what we noticed was, here's Texas. Most of it's red.
Sure.
The blue is in two areas along the border with Mexico. And then there are three blue dots located in the body of the red. Those represent the Houston-Dallas metro area. I'm sorry, the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, the Houston area, and the San Antonio and Austin metro area. And so this is why people are saying, well, Texas is turning blue. Actually, it's not. Texas is solidly red, except along the border with Mexico, and in three urban areas. That's the only reason it's turning. But then we found out that most Californians that go to Texas are moving to those exact same 3 urban areas. And then we found out that most of the growth in Texas over the last couple of years has been in those 3 urban areas. And then we found out that those 3 urban areas are also where most of the immigrants go. And that immigrants equal 17% of the population. And so the question is, let's say a bunch of Texans moved to California in the last 5 years. And Fresno County's recently gone blue. But they all wanted to move to Fresno County, and then Fresno County turned red. And then they said, well, and then we all said, we're going to have a vote for CalExit. And the Fresno County people were like, well, we're choosing to stay with America because we Fresnans have turned conservative. That's not actually true. You were flooded with a bunch of outsiders who flipped the vote. So it's not actually a fair vote of the people who've been in that region for a while. Thoughts, feelings?
I don't do the whole conservative liberal left dichotomy very well, because I have some very conservative ideas and I have some uber left ideas according to certain conservatives. So, you know, I don't do that very well myself. I'm you know me, I'm pro liberty, topple the oligarchy, make them release land. If they don't want to release land, burn it down. Like,
right. But with respect, today's show is if you had a vote on Texit and if you had a vote on CalExit,
okay,
how would it go in America? And I understand that you have a particular political perspective, but I need you to imagine America in general. Like you said, my perspective is a little bit different. Okay, well, a lot of America does do the red and blue thing. Whether they should or not, they do.
Sure.
So provided that America does the red-blue thing, how do you think a division of Texas and California may go, especially given the maps you just saw in Texas?
Well, I think that California leaving would get a lot of support all the way across the country. Texas leaving is going to get fought across the country unless Texas agrees that some other states can come with them, in which case that could turn into quite the bandwagon.
Jason, thoughts, feelings? I'll be right back, guys. I got to grab something real quick.
Jason, long time no see.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, so in case you didn't see any of the updates or anything, I'm actually the head of CalExit now. I'm the CEO of Yes.
Oh, 10-4. Well, congratulations. I'm still a construction worker revolutionary.
Hey, well, we've all got a little of the revolutionary in us.
Hopefully. Hopefully we can bring that out a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and so my thoughts on this are that it hits me quite similar to the Scottish independence referendum, the first one, not the second one, which actually is coming in October of next year, IndyRef 2. But when that vote was set to happen, England sent a lot of citizens to move to Scotland, to go be Scottish voters, to go vote against Scottish independence.
Sure.
That is straight up bold rigging of the vote.
Yeah,
if ever there was one.
Yeah. I mean, we do that. We've been doing that. That's not anything that America is not guilty of and been guilty of for a very, very long time.
And is still currently guilty of. And
sure.
I'm thinking our current California election cycle, we just went through redistricting during the primary phase. It was between having to gather support to legitimize your claim for your bid for election and the primary vote. for whether or not people will actually see you on the ballot. In between those two crucial points in time, there was a whole redistricting that went on. So, I'm a campaign manager for someone who is running for District 6 in San Francisco. Now, she's a longtime activist, veteran of the Navy who served honorably, LGBTQIA community, like, super noteworthy person, been part of the Tenderloin community, which is one of the most disenfranchised parts of San Francisco, for a very long time, right? The credentials are damn near a mile long. Now, with the redistricting, guess what part? Well, first, guess which part of District 6, which had the Tenderloin in it, guess which part supported her enough to, like, really give her enough potential that she stands a chance in this race?
No clue.
It was the Tenderloin. Guess which part this redistricting took out of District 6?
Oh, so she's gone. Basically, she ain't
Well,
got a shot.
she's still in the race, but
Yeah, but she
where
ain't got a
we
shot.
were gonna have to run a race, and, like, you're running a professional race against other professionals. It's a race, right? Nothing's easy. Now it's like we've got to run a race barefoot in a pile of nails and broken glass uphill.
Yeah. And you're doing it with somebody who wears a controversial topic as an item on their sleeve rather than supporting but not pushing in that way. So therefore they lose a whole lot of people that they could potentially partner with by being like a peacock, if you will. Like, I have gay friends, and my son wears a skirt. I have a nice bun, so on and so forth, yada yada yip yip. I'm not tripping on any of that, man. I grew up with gay people, but most of my gay friends, they're not peacocks. They're not like, "Yay, I'm so gay, check me out." Anyway, and that they're just human beings like you and me, and who they love and who they do the things with and so on and so forth ain't got none of mine or the government's or anybody else's business. And I know more people like that, and I know a lot of them that vote conservative. Door knocking with Nick around Fresno. I knocked the Tower District. Are you familiar with our Tower District?
Yeah, I was over there when I visited Marcus just a couple months ago.
Okay, cool. So Nick ran for city council in a district that included the Tower District. And I knocked a whole bunch of doors around there with Sir Nick. I knocked a door of a gay man that I'd never met who was married, who agreed the city shouldn't be buying the thing and the city should be staying the hell out of that, and that the city really ain't got nothing to do with anything, and he would rather see all of the laws that are relative to what he does the hell off the books. So, like, he's a libertarian, and he's kind of like a conservative leaning financially, but socially leaning or liberally leaning, socially independent thinker. Anyway, and that's what I run into most of is independent thinkers. And most independent thinkers aren't going to support you if you go crazy, narrowly focused after one thing. I don't even know the person you're talking about, but like my person for my city council, I voted for Annalisa Perea. She's a lesbian chick. I could give a rat's rip if she's a lesbian chick. Yay. Yeah. She has a girlfriend. What you call it? Anyway, and well, when I met her though, she was giving a talk, and talking about her qualifications and this, that, or the other. And she sounded pretty, I don't even know her, but it sounded good to me. It sounded to me like she's already making money doing what's the best thing we could use her doing if she was on the city council. And that if she's on the city council, it's actually going to get in the way of her money for her company a little bit. But she wants to do that because daddy's awesome and she wants to actually outperform him. She's got ambition, hustle. She's a door knocker, runner. I voted for her. I like her. She's dope, in my opinion. Chris Washington, my friend, hates her because she stabbed him in the back. But whatever. They the ones playing political games, trying to get up on top of this thing and ride the horse. Not me.
Yeah, and my candidate for San Francisco District 6, she's trans, but she's I guess I would personally consider her not the as you say, peacocking type, right? She just is who she is. She's got a very bubbly personality. I've met plenty of people, men, women, non-LGBTQ people who have bubbly personality, right?
Sure, yeah.
Her main issue has been that there's a lot that's not been getting dealt with in District 6 that's negatively impacting San Francisco as a whole. And she wants to figure out a way to fix all of it. And if she can't fix it all, if she gets elected while in office, that she would at least get that ball rolling so that it will be fixed. But as I said, they redistricted, and so the core of the disenfranchised voters who finally had someone who's one of their own, they no longer can actually vote for her. This, to me, says very clearly America is still guilty of rigging votes left and right and making sure outcomes are the way that the money wants it to be.
Yeah, okay, we live in the most deceived nation ever, and Team Left and Team Right, both of the motherfuckers, pardon my French, is this okay to use language on this?
I would say no F-bombs, please.
Yes, sir. Okay, so our lords and ladies, the overlords of the oligarchy, the ones who gave away land in the early times to specific groups of people, limited at 160 acres each. Okay, they still run the joint. And people want to play policy, this, that, or the other, comply. And I'm all for secession, things to break up these here United States. And I got no problem with that because I don't hold any honor to their constitution. I would be for either one of your secessions if it was a firm, flat-footed, screw you, we're going to make a council of our people and we're going to reboot our government. Bye. Like, and, you know, just get your shit off of our land and don't cross our border without a permission slip, just like you like a permission slip, and we'll be all right. You know, in California got ports, Texas got ports. Shoot, the United States cannot afford to let go of Texas or California, but most of the middle of this country are not smart enough to see it that way.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I don't mean to demean them. I'm just saying that their attention and awareness is on things that are important to them relative to the download that they got onto them in their life and education in this place that taught them the Indian way, which was to make them forget history other than the fluffy stuff and not see the sharks swimming toward them.
Well, yeah, and so I would also add to that and say California and Texas, we both have a spaceport.
Okay.
That is another notable resource. Now, if we both leave, we won't leave America without any spaceports because Cape Canaveral's over in Florida.
and for sure they want to stay, unless they want to go with Texas. Okay, depending on what Texas's leave looks like, right? Um, there's other states who have already signed on to secede with Texas if Texas will allow it. The thing about Texas is, they fly their flag the same height as the U.S. flag, and you know why.
Oh yeah, they
Most
do not bend the knee.
Most of Red America knows that very well. Okay, most of Red America knows that Texas reserved the right to secede from the Union, and they're looking for Texas to lead their charge.
Oh yeah.
You got to look at. I look at it a little bit differently. I was raised a country backwoods guy. I didn't spend a night outside my house till I was dang near 16. I took off cross country, lived on the end of Crack Alley, ended up getting in trouble, locked up during the O.J. Simpson trial, and all kinds of different experiences in life that put me as the minority in the room. I never grew up being the minority in anywhere, but it put me as the minority in the room in a lot of places, and I learned a lot of things along the way, and I'm thankful for those opportunities. And yeah, I'm more like the way I see it and the way I would couch it, if I were driving the organization that you guys are driving to push for an exit of California, my firm stance would be this nation refuses to repent. Being as this nation refuses to acknowledge the fact that she stole inheritance from large amounts of people, and half of our state is still owned by the government, what we're going to do is we're going to insist that they start to release land in the 9 western states to people whose inheritances were stolen, or we have no choice but to, in good faith, remove ourselves from people who would rather ignore history until people pull them upside their bootstraps when they burnt down, flooded the towns, took over Wilmington. So many, man, you could go on for days. I could go on for days about crap where people's inheritance, where they tell them pull up by their bootstraps, where they came and took the inheritance, they kicked your daddy out. After they took the inheritance, and then they wrote them off as vagabonds, and they reincarcerated them into the slave chains by a whole different way after burning them out of their houses. All right, and now they're gonna tell them that, man. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Well, and as a good reminder to our viewers, former President Barack Obama, when the Northern Access Dakota Pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline, right? DAPL, over at Standing Rock, if that name rings a bell for folks. Yes, California was actually set to have representation there, standing in solidarity with our indigenous brothers and sisters, because we do feel their plight. That being said, it never got to happen because President Barack Obama signed a thing, that an executive order that stated clearly, yes, we, the federal government of the United States of America, did agree that this is your land and that we owe you so much recompense, all of total indigenous America, so much recompense for the evil atrocities we've committed against you. But we're not going to pay it, ever. Also, this pipeline is going through here.
Okay, yeah, well, look at the Supreme Court decision just the other day. Okay, so right now they just took away reservations' rights to police themselves and invited themselves onto the reservation. Okay, like, we've been very kind in the fact that we allow this false government to continue to exist while we peacefully get crushed underneath of it. But like, their time's up.
Yeah, and our organization here works very closely with indigenous peoples all across California, and we are very much on that same page of land was stolen, atrocities were committed. Can we just wave a magic wand and undo it? No. But that's all the more reason why things need to be looked at very clearly, very plainly, and dealt with. And, you know, really, like, you can't really make it right, but you can make recompense. And that's what that's all about, right? Penance. It's an admission
Sure.
that
Well, yeah, when I say they've got to repent, what I mean is they've got to change their mind. And when they change their mind, they'll actually just naturally go a different way because they have a new mind frame, right? So we're looking for a change of mind of instead of looking at capitalism and independence and liberty and all that go-getter stuff in a vacuum, you have to park it in the history that you exist in. And then we like bootstraps. Actually, we're fans of those. They better tighten theirs up because they're gonna get mollywopped. What?
Yeah, well, and so my personal, you know, the way I see it is, you know, for California at least, because obviously CALEXIT can only really affect California.
Yeah.
We can only do this for us. But in that spirit, I say I
your
personally,
organization, CalExit, that's its focus.
yeah. But I personally include all of California with that. I see our indigenous brothers and sisters as our brothers and sisters. They're actually more Californian than any of the rest of us, really pasty white folks like myself.
Well, it don't get much more Californian than a Chumash. And there's a, you know, California used to be an island, right? Are you familiar with that history? Like, according to the Cortez in his journals, the swarthy Hebraic people that he rounded up, their history said that California was an island ruled by a matriarchal society of like Amazonian woman, but big woolly haired dark chick. Anyway,
Califia.
yeah, okay, so yeah, right, okay, and these people that they rounded up spoke Hebrew, and I think that if you want to get your exit done, you're going at it the wrong way by even dealing with the overlords of the oligarchy, because their dollar's going down, and the question is when their dollar goes down, are you going to honor any paperwork that's got United States across the top of it?
Most of the world won't, and that is a very valid point right there. Most of the world would not. I cannot say entirely for certain if I would or would not, but I'm leaning towards would not. I mean, why would you, you know, I mean, we all know the dollar is worth whatever we believe it to be worth, whatever value we put on it. Correct. And so
and the thing is
if we no longer value it,
kumbaya, it's over. Unless they can get us singing kumbaya, it's over, and it's not going to be pretty for them. So unless they can get us singing kumbaya, it's over. And the only way they're going to get us singing kumbaya is to get off that land. We got water pumps now. That land's inhabitable. Get off it. Fulfill the Hopi prophecy. Start building around Chaco.
Well, and so my vision is that, you know, at one point, California was an independent country of its own.
Amen. Independent.
And so before America annexed it, after Californios fought the war against Mexico that gave us our independence.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I understand. You're talking about more recent events.
Yeah, much more recently. Because, you know, with the tectonic shift and the rate of tectonic shift and, you know, common misconception, California is going to fall off into the ocean or something like that, but really it's pushing in, which does actually explain how there ever could have been water on the other side, because it's pushing inward. So you rewind it at a certain point, it's not pushed up against this other continental plate.
Right. That's where that mountain range came from that's got seashells on top of it that proves it used to be underwater. Period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and there's riverbeds that used to be inlets going into what previously were coasts, and now they're up there too. And yeah. Archaeology is beautiful, right? And you can learn a whole lot by studying it.
Oh yeah. And so in much more recent time scale, when the Californios fought, Californios were not just people who moved to California. All of Californians, that included everyone. Well, it included everyone who was already here before white man ever showed up. All of the indigenous Californians were one with California. They were part of. They were never separate. They were never excluded until America came in and said, we're giving your sacred lands to cattle ranchers, and we're doing this with your sacred lands because we see this as a strategic military point, and we're doing this with your sacred land because we think it's a great place to lock up the most psychotic people. And we're gonna commit genocide against you. And
not only that, but we're going to erase the reality of your civilization and who you were, and replace it with overblown ideas of human sacrifice that were confined to some smaller specific groups and not as prolific as they would make it sound. But that is what they put out as the stereotype, the savage, right? The savages.
Although I gotta say, when it comes to human sacrifice, ancient biblical times, all the way through the medieval and dark ages in Europe,
we've been doing it forever. We've been doing it forever.
That's the heyday of human sacrifice. If we're going to talk about human sacrifice, you have to talk about Europe.
I think we in the heyday of human sacrifice, brother. Okay.
Oh.
We have been toppling nations. We planned to topple 10. We toppled 7 of the 10. 3 stayed standing against the world banking system. Okay. Bashar al-Assad survived. Kim survived. And Iran. Help me out. Drawing a blank. Anyway, Iran, Syria, and North Korea didn't get forced into the one world banking system. For the past 30 years, China's been like, yeah, that's right. Kick them into the one world banking system. We make everything. Anyway, and they recorded it, right? Up until this past February, when our ambassador had the audacity of accusing them of atrocities with the Uyghurs. Okay. And now then that was the first time ever in such a stage where our ambassador's been basically told to shut up and sit down. And he listened for 13, 14 minutes. I think maybe it was 18 minutes as the Chinese ambassador unpacked how what was going on in the Shenzhen was the fault of the United States and their war that was causing unemployment to skyrocket there because it was unsafe, and that they had facilities to train anybody who wanted a job and to move into the city where they were going to give them a house or apartment. So like they're doing well. They do a good job of that kind of thing. And we caused the problem that caused them to have to ramp up efforts to intercede in their border town. But when we accused them of being the bad guy, okay, they came out of a century of humiliation. They said they will not be humiliated again. They took that serious. They turned off a faucet of about $5 billion of money that was being invested into Midwestern America to make it a tourist destination for rich Chinese people. All right. That was their plan till we pissed in their Cheerios. And now that we pissed in their Cheerios, right after that, they went and made a deal with Iran. Okay. Like a couple weeks later, now they've got a digital currency with Iran and gave them the $500 billion that we froze from them in the SWIFT system with the overlord IMF that we were trying to push the whole world into. Now China, always sit back and watch, stands up and says, you know what, Iran? We got your back. We know Obama sent you a care package from the Hood. So remember, the Hoods is our friends, but we got your back. We got your back. We're gonna help you get them U.S. money. And then Putin
Yeah.
had the balls to stand up for the Donbass people and tell NATO to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just pointing out today on Twitter, you know, I'm amazed how quickly people can forget. And it was triggered because someone asked me, "Oh, where are you getting this BS from?" And I was like, "BS," because someone comments that, "Oh yes, great way to win the war, Ukraine, by surrendering territories and retreating." And so I threw in there, yeah, recent report that I just had literally just finished watching when I tweeted that, showed the captured territory and armaments that were not made in Ukraine, that came from NATO countries, the munitions NATO has been sending, left behind. Some of them are those anti-tank missile systems that are so freaking expensive.
Mhm.
Yeah, so tell me again why the American taxpayer sent $600 billion worth of armaments to these people who are going to just give it up and turn tail and run. Why
You
are
really
we
want to
getting
know?
involved in this when oh, well, I know. But
No,
here's what I was pointing
interesting.
out
Okay, if
is
you know,
that,
tell me why in a sentence or two. If you know, because I know I'm a second generation Ukrainian immigrant. I have missionary friends around Ukraine. My producer that makes my beats is from Poland, and we talk regularly. He's got refugees in his house right now. Anyway, so yeah, I'd like to hear your why in a sentence or two, and then I'll give you mine.
so ultimately everything comes back to money. Just keep that in mind. So America sees this, it's supposedly about the oil and the gas and the grain. It's not. It's about further pushing on an old sore so that you can finally get rid of all of these weapons that you stockpiled and researched and developed and made better again and made even better again. You can finally use them and get them out of the inventory because the maintenance costs are killer. And that makes room for all the new weapons of war and death and destruction.
I like that. All right. Interesting.
That's why.
I could see that because the military industrial complex is like the biggest power broker on the planet. And that's
Yeah.
why I always said that Trump wasn't truthfully the people's drain the swamp guy, because he never attacked them. Okay. He kept his head
Yeah.
down and his mouth shut. Okay. That's what he did. He drove the boat the way they wanted him to drive the boat. He didn't start any foreign wars, which they're all right with because they're kind of well, the world has changed. Okay, since that ambassador embarrassed China, the world has changed. Unless we seek their forgiveness, they won't seek us as a tourist destination. They will continue to see us as an adversary. And that might be one bonus of California's peeling off, is that they could actually be allied with a more globally beneficial organization than the United States.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think
We have
most of the
800
world wants California
around
goods.
this place, around the world, right? We project power all over the place. We've toppled country after country after country after country after country. What we've did here, we did there. The same people are really like the familially in charge, the people that got boots started into the oligarchy, and it's been driving the thing the same way. They're convinced that they're going to like rule the whole world up until like this past February when things really took a shift financially globally. which gave Putin the ability to do it and not worry about it because he's going to come out on top. He's going to come out on top anyway. And like, you know, that like President Joe Biden, okay, you understand he's still a white supremacist, right? He still sees.
Oh yeah, he voted against desegregating. Yeah, Joseph Biden, as a senator, voted against desegregating the United States of America because he, quote, don't want my kids to grow up in a jungle.
Racial.
End quote.
Yeah. Okay, so his son is planted in Ukraine. Okay, so what you have to understand is that the NATO is like a global white supremacy organization. I don't care if you don't like it. Here's the truth. Okay, they're run by us. We are the arm of them. We have 800 bases all over the world. Nobody can screw with us if we're united and we put our foot down. And that's the truth right now. As it stands still, the rest of the world could unite against us, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be real ugly for them.
Yeah, if all of the NATO coalition force were brought together to bear,
But the thing about it is again, that was the forward spear of old white supremacy. And Putin stood up and basically like slapped the Freemason gig down. Okay, the whole plan of setting this global trap for a new world order that Trump was really complicit in while acting like he was freeing us from it, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. Like that all got smacked down. Like their trap that they set, they can't execute. They can't execute unless they can convince us to go to a big time war. They cannot execute. Okay, they cannot execute. We're getting too informed. The information age is coming for them real hard, real fast. This country is flipping against the old oligarchy, and the writing is kind of on the wall of it going down. So let's not leave too many great toys over here either. Anyway, so I see. I have a nihilist view of the United States, okay, because their independence declaration excluded the native savages. I see the Boston Tea Party differently than most people because old Georgie boy had told them they couldn't cross the Appalachians, right? And the Iroquois Confederation was already a government very akin to what we did, if you will, that was already existing here. And there were a lot of tribes who spoke Iroquois. The Cherokee spoke Iroquois. Okay, not all anyway, we could go into Cherokee origin stories, but anyway, some Cherokees.
Yeah, that's the 1/8 of indigenous American I have is Cherokee.
Yeah, so of the Cherokee, there's like 7 origin stories, and some of the origins of them as the group they came to be were the strange tongue people, and they spoke Hebrew. And most Cherokees speak Iroquois, and the Iroquois Confederation had their own government going on. And when our people declared liberty, they declared it from the native savages and King George. So King George told them they couldn't go west of the Appalachians and take over, basically leave the Iroquois alone. Okay. Instead, when that came through, they dressed up like natives and dumped his tea and said, see, look, can we? No, okay, fine then. We're declaring liberty from you and them. That's the way I see it. That's what I believe went down. But we get a painted picture. Okay, but answer me this: why would they dress up like native savages to go do their deed if they weren't just trying to get their daddy to agree they could cross the Appalachians and take care of that problem? And when daddy didn't agree to that, that's fine. All right, screw you and them.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
The decree went out. He told them they couldn't. And then again, shortly later, they dress up like natives and throw some tea in the harbor. No taxation without representation. Spark the thing off and get rid of both of our potential overlords. Right, our one to the east and our one to the west. Because they really, if the Iroquois had like united at this point, they were still a threat.
Yeah. Well, and so back to
That's why
California.
That's
Back
why
to
Cherokee.
yeah. Yeah, well, and so back to California in relation to all of this, right? So like, why does what's going on in Ukraine matter? Because the United States of America signed a treaty in order to enter the United Nations. And it agrees that this piece of international law that was followed by the people of Donbass, who formed the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic.
And Trump and Putin, even though his general said not annex it, said they're going to stay independent republics.
Yeah, exactly. And they had a very clear decision. Do you want to be Ukraine? Do you want to be Russia? Or do you want to be your own self-governing independent entity? And they chose door number 3, legally, by international law that the United States of freaking America signed and agreed to, as well as every other country that's in the UN has signed this and agreed to it. You can't be in the UN unless you sign that entrance treaty.
You know what my daddy taught me? He said, son, we live in the land of treaty breakers.
Oh, yeah.
And right now, the white people think that the government's like for them, they don't have a problem with it either way. But eventually it'll break treaty with them, like it breaks treaty with everybody. Okay, this here United States is it's a oligarchy of treaty breakers. Okay, I don't think you can reform it. I don't believe it can be reformed. I've prayed for its reformation. I've been talking about it for a long time, but I don't think it can be. Okay, the people at the top just got too much leverage over this whole thing, and I don't think you can do it through processes that they set up. Okay, so like doing it through like their legislative means and so on and so forth. I don't think you can do it through that because it's processes that they've set up. What we got to do is make them afraid of us again, without shooting at them, because that'll just give them an excuse to take our guns and try to round us up. Good luck with that.
Yeah, common misconception is California's anti-gun. No, we're not anti-gun. California has a lot of firearms.
A real common misconception is that the professional and middle class, like construction-y black guy is anti-gun. And
yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a real misconception. Okay,
most everyone non-white who I know who is a Californian is a gun owner.
Yeah. Right now, word on the streets is buy them while you can, get it while you can. You know who the biggest ammunition purchaser in the United States is right now?
California.
No, the United States.
Oh, yeah.
The IRS has bought millions of rounds. There's
oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay, we have ammunition shortages. That's because all kinds of different little federal agencies are buying it all up as soon as it arrives.
Yeah. Well, and so let me get back to California real quick in relation to Ukraine. And yes, I know you've got your stance about the legal systems and all that, but at least we agree on the peaceful thing. That's where it's most important, I think. Ukraine, right? So the people of Donbass hold this vote. We've gone over how, like, so much of the world agrees that this is the legal process to use.
Yeah.
So Ukraine immediately starts shelling them 8 long years, Ukraine shells mostly elderly people who like fought in World War II, like actually fought the
You're talking about this
Nazis.
14.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah, I think it was late in 2014 or something like
Yeah,
that.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So America
you.
doesn't care by and large, right? I
Yeah.
stayed tuned because, like, hey, this is a brand new country starting. This is world history. Like, you know, also, American mainstream media was saying, like, Russia is invading the Ukraine, they're annexing Crimea, and this, that, the other. Here comes the big bad Cold War, right? And so I was keeping my eyes peeled across every single international media source I could. And then I realized what the truth was. Ukraine was shelling a bunch of people who couldn't even defend themselves.
Right.
So when recently Russia said, okay, you know what? These people have cried out to us that they are persecuted. There is a genocide enacted against them because they are ethnically Russian. It's much like the native indigenous folk of America, right?
Sure.
You
Well, not
can't
only
have
that,
your
but they're on that
language
right
and you
side of
can't
the
have your
river. They
culture.
are. Yeah, that's who they are. Okay, that's who they are for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, amen.
Yeah. So they're trying to wipe out an entire culture and way of being and an entire
Our
people.
government is. Our
Yes.
government.
Well, and our American government decides to help them, but only to a certain extent until Russia decides to acknowledge that these two countries are their own independent countries and became allies with them. And at the request of the people of Donetsk and Luhansk, sent in forces to help protect them. All Zelensky had to do was put a like 100% ceasefire order out. Nobody is to fire one shot.
Right?
Oh yeah. Even
Okay.
to his own people, but
Yeah, but like on the whole world, okay, because they sold this bullcrap narrative in an information age where anybody who's studious is going to be able to get to the bottom of it, okay, if they want to.
Yep.
If they want
Yep.
to. If they choose to invest the time, they're going to be able to get to the bottom of it as long as they enter in with this help. I want to find out what really happened and not just, okay, let me prove I'm right so that I can go talk some smack someplace.
Yeah. Yeah, without vested interest. Exactly.
If they come at it honestly, they're gonna find out that it's long been some people around there who don't want nothing to do with NATO. Okay.
Oh yeah.
They don't want nothing to do with NATO. They don't want nothing to do with us. They don't want nothing to do with the whole Western system of things, and they prefer Putin's thing. Okay, Putin. You know, after 9 o'clock, you can pretty much do whatever the hell you want to, and advertise it on the TV. Before 9 o'clock, if you advertise alcohol on TV, you gonna get a fine. You might be going to gulag because you're not allowed to corrupt the youth of the nation, and a lot of people like that. Okay, before 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
no advertising anything that is against the idea that my 7-year-old should be able to watch it, right? So no heterosexual, homosexual, any of that activity before 9 o'clock at night. After 9 o'clock at night, no holds barred. Do it the hell ever you want. Snort cocaine while screwing a stripper. You won't give a shit.
Well, so back to the whole thing is
America is
Russian military forces entered Donetsk and Luhansk at the request of the governments of those two independent countries.
Yes, correct.
Then Ukraine continued to open fire and
wanted to escalate it into a world war so they could save their ass.
Exactly. Well, so keep this in mind. So they fired the first shots. All they had to do was not shoot, and what they did was shoot, and Russian forces were wounded and or killed. That is an act of war
Because they
by
wanted to
any
spark
way
a
you
war.
look
They
at
didn't
it.
want to stop it. They wanted to spark a war. The only
Well, yeah.
thing that saves America in ruling the world is a big war.
Yeah, so let me finish here. So,
Okay.
because this is what I was trying to spell out. It is exactly that. So, America would only help Ukraine so much. We don't really want to get involved. I mean, it's not really our fight anyway. Okay, well, look, now Russia is declaring open war on us. You need to help us, or we're all gonna die, and we can't be your friends or allies, and we can't join NATO, and we can't buy all of your weapons
So we
because we'll all be
entice Putin
gone.
to attack us by delivering a bunch of weapons over there to arm his enemy. Meanwhile, he's telling us in the United Nations that we need to stop doing that. He's been telling us for a long time that we need to stop the cyber war bullcrap because they're not into that. And as far as they're concerned, our Cold War agreement not to EMP one another covers all cyber warfare. And if
Yeah.
America wants to play cyber warfare, she better watch out. And anybody who thinks cryptocurrency is going to save themselves better watch out too.
Yeah, right.
All of a sudden, network goes down and ain't nothing.
Yeah. Well, and so, you know, it it comes back to why would America, in a day and age where anyone in the federal government, the CI mother freaking A, right? Anyone could know all of this. I'm an average Joe. Yeah, I'm the head of CALEXIT. I work in politics, yada, yada, yada. Uh, I'm still, at the end of the day, just an average Joe. I don't have any security clearance. I don't go around the world, doing stuff.
I've
I'm none
never
of
left
that.
the continental
And
United States in my life.
and I even know the truth of the reality of what is and is not over there. So
May I?
why would America in this day and age with the access to the information get involved? Because that's actually what the war machine wanted in the first place, was for Zelensky to fire the first shot so they have the justifiable grounds to fight a war against Russia, so they can use up the costly, the maintenance expense on a lot of that old equipment. Sure, it's still usable, but we've got bigger and better, way more efficient. We don't
Yeah,
want
but
the old
they're
stuff.
also baiting Vladimir.
Well, yeah, but
And the thing is what a lot of the United States people don't realize is that um, uh, certain nations have transferred away from requiring using dollars, and we forced it to happen.
yeah.
But now it has happened. It's not a will happen, it is a has happened. And we forced it to happen, and we don't make anything. We don't make anything. We don't make anything. We stopped making things a long time ago, and we will lose the currency war where before they wanted to stick with the dollar and make us a tourist destination. We insulted these people whose definition of prosperity is for mankind to have a mutually beneficial relationship with God requires them to have a mutually beneficial relationship with others. So for China to have a mutually beneficial relationship with their creator, they must have a mutually beneficial relationship with other nations, and that's what's going to make China great. When you insult China after 100 years worth of what they call the century of humiliation, they're coming out of it and getting into their stride, and you want to accuse them of war crimes and atrocities, United States? Okay, all right, you're not a
Well,
tourist.
yeah, and look at Russia. They just started with that with Russia. The war crimes. There's proof of war crimes. I've been watching Patrick Lancaster, who is an American.
Nobody does war crimes like us.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, so I've been watching Patrick Lancaster, who is an independent, crowd-funded journalist. He's not mainstream media. He's not bought and owned by anyone. And he took it upon himself to go move over there. He's lived there for 8 freaking years through all of this so that he can report on it. And, he ended up finding himself a wife and having a son. He started a family. Like that's awesome, right? Like, I'm glad the universe has given that man a blessing for his hard work, his sacrifice. He moved from safe little America, where if you're white, like Patrick is, like I am, you're relatively safe unless you talk back to the cops.
Oh, that's
or or your rights. Yeah.
Okay. All right, got
but
it.
but I've been watching all of this for 8 years, right? And I see very clearly exactly what you were saying there. Like, there are like, he's been documenting everything. He puts out regular updates, and there is proof that Ukraine has been committing war crimes, committing acts of genocide for 8 freaking years.
Not only that,
And
we got
America's like, yeah, that's our guy.
the stuff we accused old Saddam of doing, right? Okay. That all got moved to Ukraine. Okay, so how old are you again, bro?
I am 36 now.
Okay. So you remember shock and awe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you remember we gave them a month warning for shock and awe?
I've heard something to that effect.
Yeah,
I've always wondered if
we
they
announced it on a
actually did.
global stage. This day, 1 month from today, we are going to shock and awe the world with our precision of our smart weapons. You got a month. Prepare. Okay, that's what we said to the whole world. And then a month later, we shock and awed the shit out of him and accidentally hit a hospital. And Janet Yellen on a global stage said that was acceptable collateral damage in the war on terror. But that's scrubbed and that's Biden's bitch. But anyway, pardon my French.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the thing about it is we are the way I see it, this country, unless they can figure out how to get the left and the right singing kumbaya, they over. We over. It's bad for us, honestly. Anyway, so here's the thing. They gave them a month warning, okay? And anybody who's old enough and was nerdy and paying attention to it should be able to tell you about all the white trucks rolling out of there. Okay, so you guys have weapons of mass destruction hidden. We're going to give you a month. And for a month, bro, trucks rolled out of Iraq. White semi trucks rolled out of Iraq. Tons of them. I don't know where they went. Okay, but Saddam was our guy. Okay, he was our guy. So we were probably the hand behind any cook-ups that were going on in this country, and we probably moved all of that development to Ukraine way back then. I don't know, I can't prove it, but I do know that there is information going around that I haven't had the chance to vet about chemical weapons plants in Ukraine. And that totally makes sense because again, that's where Biden's son is. And you have to understand, like, these white power fraternities, dude, he's a fucking hero. Okay.
Yep. Now I get it. I just please
Sorry.
no. Yeah. Got to keep it family friendly somewhat.
Emotional subject for me, but like, because we're so deceived. Okay, we're so deceived. We act like America's come so far, but we put a slave on the other side of a coin. We got a two-headed coin now, no tail, divided nation. We got a slave and a slaveholder on opposite sides of a coin.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
How picturesquely metaphoric is that one?
yeah, amen. And don't think it's not lost on the oppressed. Okay, don't think the oppressed
Yeah,
don't,
right.
and don't think that that the average black father is anywhere near on the left side of politics. Like I said, these are liberty guys. They want freedom. They celebrate Juneteenth. They want their guns. They want the man off their neck. They don't need no help. They need to be left the hell alone and not accosted unreasonably. I think it needs to go further
Yeah.
than that. I think that to convince their youth that this system cares about them so we can sing kumbaya, we need to start actually putting some resources in their hands. But they don't necessarily want handouts from us. But if we were to say, hey, look, this oligarchy gave away land to the white boys early on, y'all know once you have 40 acres in a mule, go on, get you 160 like they got.
Yeah. Well, and I know a fair amount of people of color here in California. Almost all of them are not under the illusion that the Democrats are actually like for them or will help them, right? Demographically speaking. Um, a really good buddy of mine who's from Yucatan, lives in the Bay Area, lived up there for like, I mean, he's older than me, but nearly as long as I've been alive, he's lived in the Bay Area. And, you know, under no illusions about the Democrats and the Democrats of California, they are no different from the Democrats of America. The Democrats are the Democrats. They are Demopublicans. And the Republicans are Republicrats.
One bird, bro. One bird,
Yeah.
one bird, and they've got these wings that stick out as control surfaces, catching the radical agenda as far as they can. The further it is to the tip, the easier it is to push the bird, right? Which,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely. Red wing, blue wing, green tail, because the green tail is mostly ran by corporations, and they don't even realize what happened all the way back to the Enron spill before that magic enzyme cleaned up the oil. We penalized them billions and billions of dollars to do something good for the environment. They started an electric charging company for cars to play a long game for them. Same thing, Volkswagen, they got busted cheating the algorithm, cheating the emissions. We fined them billions of dollars. In comes Electrify America. So now they're building electric car station, charging stations for their incoming Volkswagens that are good for the environment. And they're really not unless you drive them 40,000 miles. If you've got like an economical car, a battery electric economical car, if it's like a Nissan Leaf or something, you got to use it for a solid 40,000 miles before it breaks even. If it's a sports car like a Tesla, you got to drive that sucker 100,000 miles before it breaks even with like the equivalent freaking sports car, say a Corvette or something. Okay, for the same amount of pollutant over 100,000 miles, that's where they break even with one another. So it's not like that was the greatest thing for the environment, but it sure played a hell of a long game for these mining people overseas who are using these equipments that require all of this oil and fuel, and we sure ain't gonna change that anytime soon. So it played a great long game for the hands of the oil holders, delivering this electric future that our national electric grid isn't really ready for. But that's because we spend too much time building bases around the world and not enough time securing water at home.
Yeah, I like to say books, bombs, and bombs and bullets, not books and baby bottles.
Yeah.
Bombs and bullets is what the government prefers, and they say screw it to the books and the baby bottle.
Yeah.
Future generations, let them pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Oh, they'll be drinking toxic water that might leave them brittle-boned and or quadriplegic or something, and thus be physically unable to actually pull themselves. Well, I guess it's going to suck for them now, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's America.
this past solstice, uh, the tribal people were asking for people to pray in solidarity on the solstice for water protection. Okay, so the same Standing Rock people, water protectors. Okay, so like I'm a no fracking around guy. I am a tap domestic oil, but if you think you're gonna frack for it, no way, no, not gonna happen. And not if I could stop it, I would. There's no way you're going to vibrate the ground to change the geological structure and mix things under there so that you can get access to this other crap. No, thank you. Just stop. I like what
Yeah.
Biden's doing. He's actually pouring them full of concrete. These wells that would need to be fracked, I don't know if you know it, but by executive order right now, Biden's got money all across the country. And it's distributed into the hands of the states to pull the oil well pipe casing out of these wells and fill them with concrete so they can never be used again. And if it's a dry well, I support that because I don't want somebody seismically vibrating the piss out of the ground to try and make it function again.
Yeah.
No, fill it with concrete. And I was building some fences, and the pipe, the reason I found out about that federal money coming down to do that is because building pipe fencing, like stack welded 3-inch pipe. And all the pipe is coming in super cheap because it's ex well casing. It's getting pulled out of wells in Bakersfield, like right now.
Oh, wow.
Good move, if you ask me. I'm not totally Biden. I'm not totally anti-Trump. Like I said, I don't do the whole left-right dichotomy very well. What you call it? And I like to just look at the individual thing and make my decision on the individual thing. And for me, while I am a conservative, I'm a real conservative. I'm conserve water for my kids conservative, that kind of conservative. And to me, capping wells that they'd have to frack to make function sounds like a very smart conservative thing to do to protect water for our children. So good job.
Yeah, especially since we know, the ancient Romans had a specific formula for concrete that they used above water, and for concrete that would come into contact with water or even be fully immersed in water. And the stuff that's made for water, actually, it hardens. The wetter it gets, the harder and stronger it becomes. And, if they use something like that, I think that sounds, just on first, glance, that does sound very good, very reasonable and smart. When it comes to California's water issues, Marcus was covering, we don't really have the water issues people like to say we do. I like to also point out a free and independent Republic of California.
We're 5 years into a drought. Last drought went 11, and Millerton was almost empty. My city had frozen watering down to like next to nothing. They were incentivizing. Right now, my city is incentivizing you replacing your grass with dryscape. The city of Fresno, if you got a green grass yard that has sprinklers, they'll pay you $1 per square foot to turn it into dryscape and an additional 50 cent per square foot to dump the sprinklers from the equation while you're doing it. So $1.50 covers a pretty nice dryscape because they're actually being smarter this time, and they've started pushing for the conservation earlier. In 2017, we had a really wet year, okay, and it overflowed every dam we had, and a bunch of it ran out, and we didn't capture it because we're idiots, and that's
because one of our dams up in Oroville failed.
Yeah.
Even though there was ample warning from a local who I actually, growing up in that area, I even heard about that as a kid, that dam was not safe and that here's the potential destruction it could cause. Hopefully it's not that much if it ever happens. And guess what? It happened, and thank goodness it did not cause the total destruction it could have, because oh my bejeebus.
Sure, amen. Yeah. That was kind of Beautiful, beautiful, barely scraped by from disaster situation. I was watching it. Um,
Yeah.
we all the way back in 1920s had a plan to build a dam at Temperance Flats when we were putting in all this hydro.
Oh yeah.
That would have gave
Yeah.
us more hydro, which we need. We need more grid storage. We need more storage. So it would have gave us more hydro, and it would have gave us in a very narrow section of canyon because it's at Horseshoe Bend at Temperance Flats.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a very narrow, steep section. So a rather small dam will back up a lot of water. It'll be a tall dam, but it'll be a narrow dam that backs up a huge channel that, like miles up, opens up into this massive basin, right? That would be like that would dwarf a lot of stuff, and it would be. We should do that. We lose water in that chain of dams every wet year. Okay, 17 in early in 17, Lake Millerton was down to nothing. Okay, again, and we had real panic on our hand, and they had these programs that they had been working for a couple of years anyway, and they think that the longest drought that we could survive, according to their estimates then, they thought they could survive another 3 years. Okay, is what they thought that they could survive is maybe a 14-year drought. But thankfully they got bailed out, and part of their plans of surviving that drought was turning off everybody's lawn water. Everybody's lawn dies, period. That's that. We need the water. Like what was it? Is it Budapest or something ran so tight on water they had to do like serious cutbacks on water? I don't remember. Anyway, we in this nation are
Yeah, I'm not
our
entirely certain on that.
our aquifers have been getting depleted outrageously rapidly as these corporatists farm the land and outsource our water all over the world by making us the breadbasket. Okay, you grow a tomato here and you send it anywhere. What did you do? You exported water. Okay, you exported water. You get that, right? Okay, so we have been exporting all of this nation's water for a long time. And any geologist, look into geology and look into the panic that's going on in geology as the main aquifer in the middle of this country is approaching dry. I just so happen to know some guys who are tapped into the aquifer below that with a water bottling company. Pricks. Anyway, they did it. They got it in a hostile takeover, and it's actually near Standing Rock. It's in Nebraska, and it's in the aquifer below it. But that our aquifers are drying up, and we overpump. Fresno's been sinking. Okay, it's been sinking, and most of the water that's being pumped is not for your local Californian small farmer. It's just not. Most of it's owned by insurance companies. I know because I put in a lot of power plants for the insurance companies called solar systems in these fields that they own those too. And they own the farm labor management company and the place where they stay. And they probably own the fake social security number company, or at least it's one of their cousins. Anyway, it's just, yeah. The way I see it, the way these people want to be building the wall, build the wall, build the wall. Yeah, it's going to stop them from escaping to Mexico when we go to round them up. Sorry. Are you there? Hello? If you're back, holla. I guess. I don't know. Hopefully he comes back. I was going to ask him about something. I know we kind of got off CALEXIT, but his approach to CALEXIT is compliance with the legal system. All right, whatever. My approach would be a new declaration of independence from the oligarchy because it won't repent. Therefore, as responsible people, we must do such a thing. I've got a friend that I've encouraged to write it. and I want to read it before I sign it, Hancock style. My perspective on it is, have you ever heard of the 1619 project? And you can jump in. I could get you a link for it if you want. Have you ever heard of the 1619 project? It's where, okay, cool. So I'm more of a 1492 guy. In the Library of Congress, you can read that Columbus and Cortez encountered swarthy people who spake a Hebraic dialect. They said that the people that they met here spoke broken Hebrew. They were dark brown people who spoke a broken Hebrew that they rounded up and transported all the way back in 1492. Okay, so to me, this thing kind of got started earlier. Were you listening earlier when we talked about the Boston Tea Party? No, definitely not Mormonism. I'm very much opposed to Joseph Smith. I could talk a lot about him. I studied with Mormons for a year and some change. I've read the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I have Mormon friends, but Mormons believe that black people are part of Laman's curse, or they were cowards in the War of Heaven. And it's no wonder that their white supremacist ideology caught on so quickly when they were letting the dudes get their pecker wet all kinds of ways. So surprise, surprise, it grew. They told them they were the best, set up a priesthood to rule the world, and didn't let the black people into like almost 1980. But yeah, Hebraic speaking people, correct, in America. It's in the Library of Congress. You can read about it. First sources, they're just there. It just is what it is. When I was younger, I used to make fun of this thing where these Messianic Jews visited a Cherokee res and they heard a young girl singing her worship songs that her grandma had taught her. The Messianics started crying because they believed God was transmuting the sound. Okay, they thought God was changing the sound waves so that they heard their mother tongue while she was speaking in Iroquois. But she wasn't singing in Iroquois; she was singing in Hebrew. The Cherokee have multiple multiple origin stories, and there was a sect of them that were like a strange tongue-speaking people, and those might have been the Hebrew speakers, but they taught their great granddaughters to sing Hebrew worship songs. Just facts. It is what it is. Like the Olmecs came here 2,500 years before BC, right? So Leif Erikson came up north in like 1200-ish or so. Then the Spanish people started coming around 1492. They hit multiple places. Amerigo Vespucci, right, came here. He didn't go by that till he came here, and the Amarucans called this place America, Amérique. And he came here and he changed his name to lay claim to, oh yeah, we named it for me. Anyway, so so Amerigo Vespucci isn't really the name, the reason that this place was named that. It was the people that were here before. And there was great cities. Have you ever heard of Chaco? Like people of ancient past made pilgrimage to Chaco. And it's in New Mexico, and it's able to be seen from satellites, and it is just like Giza, stupidly locked on to the stars. I actually do like Graham Hancock. What you call it? I would say he's a decent person. He is an honest, skeptical, investigative person. So I like him. He's not my only source, but I do like him. I don't have anything against Mr. Hancock, including his looking into the leveraging of hallucinogens. We all know, anybody who knows much about engineering knows that microdosing is a way that certain engineers are cheating nowadays, right? They microdose shrooms and get more creative and like engineer better. I've never tried it, but I submit to the fact that it works. Anyway, so my thing is all the way back in the beginning, King George told them they couldn't cross over the Appalachians, couldn't go take over the rest of the continent, right? Before that, there was the Iroquois Confederation, which we kind of copied with our declaration in our government, something very similar to theirs. And we dressed up as natives, threw his tea in the harbor, say, hey, bro, look, you still can't let us go to the other side of the Appalachians. And then maybe he threw off that. So we threw off him and them. And in the Declaration of Independence, it declared us from the native savages, right? Independent from the native savages. So I choose to, instead of be part of the U.S. United States, I'm part of the Amaru, the Amari, the American people, human beings, and could give a rat's rip about their government. I'm not trying to go nowhere, but yeah, I don't know. I have an interest. My dad taught me we live in the land of the treaty breakers, and that eventually they're going to break treaty with the white people like they broke treaty with everybody else, and it's all about money, and that this is all going to go down. And hey, man, welcome to the show. It's on its way. Lest they can get us singing Kumbaya. I'd like to see the positive side of the Hopi prophecy fulfilled, where the white brothers bring their tablets to the table and we go into singing Kumbaya in the future, and people start building and living around Chaco again. And we start to teach a more true history and truth of the archaeological record. We admit that we've been hiding giant bones in the Smithsonian. If you don't understand that that is the truth, I recommend you look up Abraham Lincoln's speech on the edge of Niagara Falls, where he talks about it. Because they like Abraham Lincoln, right? They put him up as a famous guy. All the kids like him. So I like to quote him. And in the Library of Congress, there's a speech of his that you can Google. If you ask Google, it say, the eyes of that great extinct species of giants whose bones fill the mounds of North America. Say that to Google and see what she says and what that comes from, because it'll be from the Library of Congress, and it'll be a speech Abraham Lincoln was given on the edge of Niagara Falls, talking about giant bones in the mounds of Americas, and that those giants had stood and stared at Niagara, just like him and all those people were right then, and that contemporary with the entire human race and history, Niagara, right? That's what Lincoln said. And it's in the Library of Congress, just like those other things I was talking about that's in the Library of Congress. Library of Congress is very useful. Yeah.
Could I get the money from
I'm on a Zoom. My son needs me. Hold on just a minute. What do you need?
I need to go to CVS before it closes at 10.
Okay, it's 9:03. And what do you need from me right now?
I know, like maybe $20. Sorry, it's just
Text your hours.
it's like I think
Text
it's
them.
12. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hey, sorry about that. Are you still there? I don't want to just talk to myself, although I do that. Just not out loud so much. All right, 10-4. Independent California. A brother of mine, my brother from another mother, Nicholas Wildstar, introduced me to Mr. Marcus Ruiz Evans, and we had a talk, and I really felt a kindred spirit with Mr. Ruiz Evans, and I liked Mr. Ruiz Evans, and he and I agreed on a lot of things, and we I ended up joining the group with my friend Nicholas, who joined the group as well. But my friend Nicholas runs for office. He's ran for office a few times. He's fought for his rights in this country. He's won a freedom of speech liberty case. He's worth a Google. Nicholas Wildstar is his name. It's actually a black superhero from a comic series. Anyway, so yeah, Nicholas Wildstar is his name. His dad gave him that name. So I joined with him, but my view has always been what my view has been. And Mr. Evans wanted people to come and discuss why we might want to do this and what it might look like. And I'm a less compliant version of that. I look at what our government has done and what they currently do, and they focus on all of these quote unquote defense expenditures, having 800 bases, toppling countries over and over and over again. I realize that the global reserve currency is shifting. It's going to China. China funded Iran. They're working with Russia. All kinds of different people are going to jump on that economic bandwagon. It's just going to happen. And there's not really much we can do about it because the American people aren't united, because the average black father is riding around in the trunk of not the average, excuse me, the poor, not the average, the poor. Let's get it straight. The poorer black father is riding around in the trunk of the civil rights car. His family is catching a ride with liberal, leftist, white supremacist agendas of get you to focus on anything and everything potentially possible, then maybe looking to address inheritance stolen from their people, and how when the 13th Amendment went in, right, we started locking people up and putting them back in. And then 1800s, when Darwin's book came out, 1850, you know, the book Origin of Species, Darwin book. Do you know without Googling, do you know the original title? It's Origin of Species and Preservation of Favored Races. They didn't need to hide back then. That's the real title. Google it. Anyway, so the book was Origin of Species and Preservation of Favored Races, came out mid-1800s. After that, Team Whitey went on a burn and flood the black towns around them and take away their capital that they had made to this point, if you will, by destroying their cities and flooding their cities all over this place. Wilmington, they took over that, blah, blah, blah. So many different things. During this time, on the tail end of them being codified as supreme in the science of the United States. I'm a mutt. I'm a mutt. All right. I'll start with what I have the most of. I'm 1/4 Ukrainian. My grandpa immigrated as an adult. Um, my grandma on my mother's side is Sicilian. So she immigrated from Sicily. My Sicilian family are the Nicolosis, and they were very close and related with the Capones, which, like, Al Capone, his real name's Capone, and my dad used to work for Frank Capone. My dad stripped the gears out of his son Mike, I think his name was, I don't know, I was a little kid, stripped the gears out of his sports car when he jumped the railroad tracks with it on the way, because my sister was being born at the hospital, and my mom had got, anyway, she was going into, and we were packing up our work truck to go, and he says, just drive my car. So driving the mob boss car's son's car, and broke it. So yeah, anyway, loads of fun. So I have Italian family, Ukrainian family. My dad's side, they're imported Okies. My Nana was French, blonde-haired, blue-eyed French lady. She had a variety of other stuff too. She was a mutt. She wasn't a purebred. On my grandpa's side, he's a mutt, and he actually got crazy into genealogy, and he had all different kinds of input into that, like researching back. He came from England. Part of his family, the one he was most focused on, came from England, what you call it, and there might have even been some kind of nobility or something. I don't know. Last name Shelton, and I don't know, and I don't really care, to be frank. But my grandpa cared. But yeah, he's part Cherokee. My great grandma on my dad's side died in the last free Indian territory of Oklahoma when she was a younger woman and my dad was young. His fondest memories for her was her telling stories after they had scratch baked a chocolate cake and rolling a mason jar to make butter after basically her regaling them with stories while she's doing it. My aunt, I got a great aunt who's like Cherokee famous. She's on plates. They made dolls out of her. I don't even know her name. My dad does, and it's a big thing to him. And I don't get the doll because it's not a big enough thing to me, and it's going to my uncle, and I don't really care. He's right. But my uncle named his daughter after this lady. And it's not that I don't care. It's just, man, I'm married, got 4 kids, and I got other things to be doing than to be in researching who my great ancestors were. And I know for some people that really matters to them, and cool, more power to them. I'm a mutt. Like I'm a mutt. It's like, which one do I run after? No, well, I was born in California and I'm in Fresno and I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I might go visit Delaware again and come back. I might go someplace. I'd love to go to Chaco and come back, but I think Fresno's the place to be. I think the Central Valley is the place to be. I think the foothills above the Central Valley is even more of a place to be eventually as we're moving ourselves that way. But we require more water to be able to do that. Californian first. No, I'm consider myself a human being first, and I recognize your humanity before I recognize any Californian, this, that, or the other. This old used to be island ruled by a dark-skinned queen with a big fro of Amazonian power. California, now part of the United States, once part of Mexico. No, I'm not Californian first. I'm a human being first. I think that we live in the land of human doings running on a rat race, and they don't realize that the house of cards that's around them that has created this comfort that they've experienced for so long is really rocky. If they can't get together and do something about it, it's really rocky. But if they get together and do something about it, woo-wee, it could be very pretty. And that's why the Hopi have a 2-sided prophecy. One is we bring our tablets to the table and we talk about these things, and we'll start to build around Chaco again, and everybody will sing Kumbaya, and the young brown kid in the neighborhood will be like, hey, America loves me because it empowered my fathers of my culture that it robbed and raped and pillaged. Yay. Kumbaya. The system stays. If not, fuck them and their bootstraps. I'll beat them with their bootstraps. Sorry for the language again. So no, I'm sorry, not a Californian first. If anything, I'm a creationist. I would say creationist. If I'm going to say anything first, I'm a creationist. That's most definitely, I'm a creationist. Yeah, but I don't consider myself a Californian first. I was born here, but I moved around. We were kind of gypsy-fied. I was here, and then we went to Pennsylvania, and we were living around there. And my dad was working for the Capones. Then my dad got a deal on a barn in upstate New York, and we're literally living in a barn in the winter up near Bolivar. Up near Bolivar, and we burn wood in a wood stove to not freeze to death, and that's what my mom cooked on, and we didn't have electricity. Like, I'm somebody who's been homeless before he was anywhere near old enough for it to be his fault. My sister learned to walk on that place. That's the first time I built a coaster cart. More favorite train system down than creating a new country. Now, I don't want to tear anything down. What I would like to see is I would like to see us intelligently stating that unless the federal government starts to release land to people whose inheritance were stolen, that in good conscience as somebody who knows we can't talk about bootstraps in a vacuum, but rather we like bootstraps, but we have to park them in context of history, and would talk about stolen inheritance. And nowadays, where we've got the ability to pump water with the electron, all of this land that they deemed uninhabitable, that they leased out to the ranchers, is inhabitable now. As long as we have electrons, all that land is solidly inhabitable and move intoable, and build newer Barcelona style cities with like maker centers and things